Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining us. We're here and we're back live for the second day in a row. Hopefully, we'll keep this one up. And I plan on leaving this one out just as a live today. We probably won't chop this down and kind of chop out the us and the ums and everything and pop out as a video. So good to see you all that are joining us live and loud for this one. And if you're watching this after we've been live, massive fist bump to yourself as well. We've got a few things to tackle here. I was kind of setting up for today, looking ahead to what had actually happened yesterday and what is kind of in the offing for the next day or two. And it felt all things were quiet on the Western Front. We kind of caught up with a lot of business, SPFL, Scottish football that had happened over the weekend, yesterday for Monday. But right before kind of getting set up, we had some breaking news, as it were, or a breaking revelation of Motherwell getting their three-man shortlist together to replace Jens Berthal Askou. On top of that, we're all waking up to the highlight package of New Zealand versus Iran and Elijah Just really showing the best version of himself. So I thought, unless anything else comes up from the chat, as we're live and loud with you all today, if we don't have anything else coming from there, then we'll probably just have a wee look at World Cup player ratings as they are right now. We're not quite finished match day one, but there's not too much else left and there's not too much else going on. So unless the chat throws much at me, that's probably what we'll do in the second half of the stream today. But good to see you all. Fist bumps on arrival. Please do like and subscribe for more content like this. And yeah, I think we should just get stuck straight into this one because... Where is it? There it is there. Ben Jacobs reporting this morning that Goncalo Theo has been linked to the job there. And I must admit, this is not a name that really jumped out to me as somebody I was overly familiar with. Reading through this, he's obviously coached at, Legia Warsaw, and he's went around the kind of outskirts of European football. But when you dig deeper into this guy, he's actually pretty well regarded. He's got a bit of a cult following, certainly on social media and whatever, quite a well-regarded coach, it must be said. A bit of a firebrand, as we're kind of getting to at this point, but out of contract now after being the Tondela manager this year. Tondela, a provincial type Portuguese team, maybe not too dissimilar to Motherwell, and just generally where they find themselves, typically more often than not. He's only 36 years of age, and when I was reading through the tail of the tape of this guy, I thought, this guy is, don't want to say he's an inspiration necessarily, but like guys that just get up and go and make a career for themselves, I've always got a firm level of respect for. His points per game average isn't fantastic, except for the Legia Warsaw and maybe this Motor Lublin stint, which was, I think, the second tier of like Polish football or something like that. So he does have some success to his name. Very, very little actual track record here, meat on the bone. I'm struggling with another way of describing it, but he's got a bit of a watered down version of some of the candidates we've seen linked to the Hearts job. He's actually got some background in the video analysis stuff as well as assistant coach before becoming a manager in his own right and going around some weird and wonderful places, having to change country and culture and whatever on a few different occasions to, implement his style and to get the team rolling in, his image, as it were. In terms of tactical outlook for this guy, it's, when I was having, where the hell's the page went? So I got a wee bit of a, there we go. Did a wee bit of typing up after reading it. So when you look through everything, it looks like there's a bit of a 4-4-2 here, maybe sometimes a 4-3-3. The guy likes to have proactive possession and overloads. So he's one of these guys that loves to, kind of similar to Jens Berthal Askou, but it is dynamic. It's about possession. It's about challenging the opposition in interesting ways and trying to get the most out of the individuals. You have a high-intensity counter-press type thing as well and dynamic wingers. It relies very heavily on the 4-3-3 for forward action. People that can cut inside and create overloads, that sort of thing. So it definitely has a good tail of the tape. It is an interesting character at only 36 years of age, but it's still kind of firmly, for me anyway, in the novice category. So I don't know if I was Motherwell, I don't know if I would be too up for this guy, because when you read into some of the stuff he's been up to as well, I had a page of all that summarized. If I can go and grab that, I'll find it for you. There we go. So his tactical acumen has frequently been overshadowed by disciplinary and legal issues. In late 2024, Polish prosecutors brought criminal assault charges against him, stemming from a 2023 incident where he allegedly threw a desk tray at Motor Lublin's chairman, causing facial injuries. His subsequent stints at Dunkirk and Radom were cut short due to player tensions and venue-related altercations. So I see a bit of a firebrand, a guy that's got, kind of gives me De Zerbi vibes in a way. You know how De Zerbi's a wee bit, shoots from the hip and is quite aggressive with the way he wants his team to play and isn't backwards and coming forwards in many regards. Could be a bit of fresh air and, could add something to the league, certainly, don't get me wrong. But I think if I was Motherwell with the kind of period of success and certainly with Elijah Just, who's a nice kind of bridge that we'll have when we get to the World Cup ratings, they are in the best position they've ever been in, Motherwell. And would you want this guy taking over the reins who, to this point in his managerial career, is just over the 100-game mark, across a few questionable divisions as well in terms of the level that they're at. And Motherwell are in Europe this year. Let's see how far they go or how prominent they are there, let's say. But this is a delicate situation for Motherwell. And although this guy's kind of interesting and kind of funny, I suppose, I don't think in good conscience it's a guy that you really would see being the Motherwell manager. The bookies' favourites right now, though, is Ryan Mason, who has a really good reputation in England, down to the caretaker job he did at Tottenham on more than one occasion when Daniel Levy was in the final throes of his mad reign as Tottenham chairman or whatever he was, coming in for, it was Conte, it was Conte's assistant, it was Mourinho, it was all that stuff, and he was constantly coming in as caretaker. I think he was even the caretaker for the League Cup final that Mourinho got bagged for beforehand. Recently became the West Brom manager, leading them into this season, but they was sacked. I think they were bottom of the table when they sacked him as well. Only 1.15 points per match. Now, the Championship is quite an unforgiving league. And when you look at this, 26 matches, 9 wins, 4 draws, 13 losses. It sounds like an easy thing to say when you're looking at football through numbers, but it's really the losses there, 13, if that could have been kept down, the Championship's such a cutthroat division, if that in the early stages of the season was even just like 8 or 9, and you got 1 or 2 of them into being a win, and of course 1 or 2 of them would then be a draw. It's a very fine margin division. There's no room for error. There's no real room for development and growing into the league. And that was something actually Motherwell benefited from last year. Jens Berthal Askou started well, but he didn't start as well as he would go on to do as manager, and the team would obviously grow through the season. So maybe not a luxury has been afforded elsewhere, that maybe in the SPFL with Motherwell, it could work out quite nicely. I kind of like the fit for this guy at Motherwell, because when I think about the better players that kind of get unearthed that come into the SPFL, they are from Premier League 2. They are from under 21 teams from like Brentford and, these types of situations. And Ryan Mason feels like he would be a good manager for those types of players Motherwell already have, and any more ones that they'll go out to get. Could he be as good as Askou? Could he kind of, keep that trajectory going? I think it would be questionable. I think it would be a risk in that regard. West Brom overall did survive relegation just about. They changed managers quite a few times, which we'll actually go on to discuss here a little bit. But Ryan Mason is very much, the other guy we were just talking about is a bit of a novice. Ryan Mason's even more of a novice. He's got a bit more of that elite experience that Goncalo Fio doesn't have, because he's been actually like a manager himself anywhere he could get a gig. Whereas Ryan Mason, ex-professional, then becomes youth coach, and he's just got more of that exposure to, I say, those sorts of players that Motherwell and the other kind of up-and-coming SPFL teams outside the Hearts, I suppose, regularly shop in terms of those emerging kind of, not the elite performers in England, because the elite ones do get hoovered up into first teams in the Championship and the Prem, but those ones that maybe aren't quite cutting the grade there but need a bit more time or could do with a different chance. Been pretty quiet. Yeah, I've seen that too. Should sign Logan Chalmers this week to go with the Matty Todds from last week. Ian, so rare. Good to see you, my man. The St Johnstone fan in the house. Michael Taylor, good to see you. Fist bump. Donny Kosu, good to see you. Elijah Just goals, sensational earlier. Delighted for him. Great game too. Glad Iran got good support from the crowd. Love the new channel, mate. Thank you very much. And yeah, man, the Elijah Just goals were actually good goals, like good play. Confident kid now, isn't he? I say kid, he looks young. He's like 27, 28, isn't he? But yeah, good waking up to that. And I thought, like, fair play to him. I remember saying on Celtic content, like, Motherwell were after, I read a report anyway, they were after like 11 or 12 million for Elijah Just, and a lot of people scoffed at that. Maybe they're banking on World Cup success, Motherwell, when they say that, but I don't think you'd be scoffing at that too much anymore. And it kind of highlights again the situation Motherwell are in, where Elijah Just isn't going to be a Motherwell player next year. Feels not happening. It feels like very much they'll be cashing in on him. Maswanisi had earlier links to Anderlecht, I think it was. So Motherwell are going to be cash rich. They're going to have European football. They're going to have a good vibe and a good squad around the place. Who knows what happens with one or two of the other ones? But Ryan Mason, Goncalo Fio. Imagine you were the Motherwell owner, you were the manager, you were the Motherwell CEO, whoever the shot caller is, these two guys, would you really feel confident giving them the reins? And really, the remit is for Motherwell, like European Cups, whatever happens, happens. But after last season, you have to be going for fourth again. You absolutely have to be. Could you, Motherwell fans, if you're in the chat or in the comment section, let it be known, but what do you see as the remit for the season coming? Is it some cup success? Is it not get eliminated from Europe at the qualification stage? Is it go for fourth again? Let me know what you think. So it's also easy for me to say as a kind of neutral to Motherwell, as it were. But Motherwell fans, of course, let it be known. But I would imagine it's at least going back for fourth again, because the money that comes with it. And the great thing as well, right? See, with Ryan Mason and Goncalo Theo, they'll be looking at Jens Berthal Askou doing a really good job at Motherwell and getting the Toulouse job. Like, that is a really good job in European football. And this is a huge coup in a way for the SPFL, because we've not really had much managerial success. Yeah, like O'Neill left Celtic once upon a time, and Alex McLeish left Rangers once upon a time and went to the Prem and kind of mixed it up, and Brendan Rodgers with Leicester. But when you look at everyone else, it's kind of went down. Neil Lennon, Beale, Gerrard, like no one else has really done. Well, Ange's kind of done all right, kind of half recently, hasn't he? But like, you know what I mean? There's not ever been that, like, oh, you do well in the SPFL, you could get a good job down south. It's just not really been a thing. And Toulouse isn't down south, of course. But if he goes and does a good job at Toulouse, the next manager in the SPFL might get a decent opportunity, and then once that happens 2, 3, 4 times, then the league, different clubs can then attract a whole different category of manager, because there is then that, established position in the food chain where, like, okay, you get a team outside of Hearts, Celtic and Rangers into fourth and you play good stuff, then some teams will look at that, and depending on what your ambitions are, that might be right down your alley. So I'm sure Ryan Mason and the last guy look at this as like a job they would very much want. I don't know why they wouldn't, to be honest with you. A club that, in terms of this, the players that are there already, think about the first guy who wants to play all this kind of Deserby ball. The players there showed they can do that stuff. They might not look it on paper, O'Donnell's and McGinn's and these types of characters, but they very much showed that they can. If you back them and you believe in them, that they'll be able to get it done. Now, I, like many of you, I'm sure, watch lots and lots of Scottish football content, and I do like the warm-up, I think it's called, with Naismith, Sutton and Boyd. Okay, now Naismith was on it recently, and I was listening to it and I thought they are buttering him up for an interview, because they were talking about Naismith when he was at Hearts and other stuff, and could he go back in. If you've not seen it, check it out. It's not that old. It's maybe the last thing they posted with Naismith on it, because he's at the World Cup, of course. And I didn't realise until I sent up for this video, he is only 39. Now, again, Hearts fans, if you're in and around the place, let it be known. But I don't think he was a bad Hearts manager. Obviously, he wasn't wildly successful or anything, but I don't think he was a bad Hearts manager. I like listening to him. I think he talks football well. He's also had some great experience in the Premier League, and obviously with Rangers and Hearts in the SPFL themselves, for Scotland International as well, away at the World Cup. And, similar kind of chat to what we had yesterday with the McInnes factor that he gave Hearts and he might have for Rangers. Naismith, who's got that kind of level above Motherwell experience as a player and as a manager to some degree, could that be a great appointment for them in this next step, where maybe you don't see Stephen Naismith being Motherwell manager for like 5 years or anything like that, but could he, because again, like, I'm pretty sure Callum Slattery is out the building at Motherwell. We've already spoken about 1 or 2 other players that could be sold. And if you do have high turnover, like, Naismith knows the league, and if Motherwell clearly have some sort of recruitment strategy on the go that is working for them, although they did lose one of those guys to St Mirren earlier in the window, so that's maybe yet to be seen how effective they'll be in this window. But again, giving Naismith that extra kind of SPFL filter on all the targets that they're going for, I guess the worry with Naismith is that he wouldn't be as cutting edge as what Jens Berthal Askou was. I'm not a Well fan, but the boy oozes quality, which we knew already. He's just shown it in the World Cup stage with 2 wonderful goals. That'll be Elijah Just. I would agree with that. Good to see you all. Good morning. Lots of fist bumps and handshakes in the chat. Just will go bigger and better things than the old firm, says Michael Taylor. I think, that's the thing about players in the SPFL, like Motherwell and Hibs and everything like that. Maybe there's other examples. I suppose Hearts sold Penrice, didn't they? Like, they've got no problem selling outside the division, and the rest of the teams in European football are quite happy to pay actual normal transfer fees for stuff, So, like, see if you're not going to play, like, starting for one of the teams in Glasgow and be like the main man and get paid proper wages, like, and I mean proper wages by comparison to like Elijah Just, let's just say Toulouse, just for comfort, right? Toulouse in terms of wages for like a first team player, never mind a key player. I think, you know, you're probably thinking about that. You get key players, first team players, squad guys, and then like prospects and backups and whatever. So you're looking at that maybe like top 50% of the wage budget is probably the equivalent to Celtic and Rangers' top four earners, period, you know? So, and, you know, like, I don't like hearing the excuses of Scotland isn't an attractive place to bring players and managers to, because I just don't agree with that. People go everywhere for opportunities and for money, you know, and I just won't hear otherwise. But there is some countries that are really nice to live in, you know, and if you're going to kind of get the same money and you're going to live somewhere super nice, you know, and you see a lot of Scottish players in particular really enjoying their lifestyle that they get in Italy, then, you know, it doesn't surprise me that guys might end up in Belgium or France or Italy or Portugal or wherever it could be. So the Naismith one, like, this makes a lot of sense. I think Motherwell would be smart to interview Naismith because, you know, it depends on other candidates and the success of them. And when you see the whites of their eyes and when you really get talking to them, you'll get, that's when you get a feel for these people, you know, and that's the job of the club. And then in this case, Motherwell, to really do and to vet. I think Stephen Naismith is somebody who you kind of know what you're getting with him. I did notice he tried to use his arm for the first goal. I kind of looked at that too. I thought, oh, that was naughty. Sorry, what was the other one? There's a comment in here, but Jens, there it was, yeah. Already established a good foundation to build on at Motherwell. The wise move would be to hire someone that respects that and believes in a similar style. I'd go for Wagner. Yeah, so we spoke about Wagner and the Hearts kind of thing. And again, thinking about him in his current situation, obviously the person, if he's motivated to do it, of course, that's all that needs to happen, really, I would suspect. But Motherwell, not quite as advantageous as Hearts. And if he is in the market to get a job that's of this kind of level, then I don't think he'll be going for the Motherwell job or be available for the Motherwell job until the Hearts thing is kind of done and dusted. So maybe, I think from where he's been at and where he is at the moment, it would be interesting to see if that would be a move that would happen. I think in terms of respecting the style and whatever, the Portuguese lad, Goncalo Fio, is probably quite close to that. But I just think, again, the kind of firebrand nature of him is... I would just avoid it if I was Motherwell. I really, really would. Now, the other name that really comes prominent into the reckoning for this is the one I am the most excited about. And again, similar to Stephen Naismith, look, this guy's 36, Goncalo Fio. Ryan Mason is 35, retired obviously early as a professional. Naismith at 39 is actually the oldest person I'm featuring in this video. So Motherwell, certainly, and a lot of this stuff comes from bookie odds and whatever, right? So if that's to be believed, they're certainly going for a young manager, you know, young talent, as it were. And the other name that's very prominent in the reckoning in this regard, I think, would be an absolute slam dunk for Motherwell, would be a very ambitious appointment, could actually be a worthy candidate, maybe even for the Hearts job, if that was even, yeah, who knows, right? Would be Eric Ramsey. Now, this is a name that some of you will be familiar with. He was recently the West Brom manager. I know him better as being the Minnesota manager from when he was over on MLS. He's a former Man United coach, maybe Tottenham or something else as well. Chelsea, it was. Former academy manager as well. This guy's 34. And he's already got a very impressive CV. Already been an individual coach at Man United for 3 years. Under 23 assistant manager at Chelsea for 2 years. And you can see that kind of bedrock stuff there when he, you know, you're looking at 2013 to 2016, he was the under-18s manager at Swansea. And around then, for Swansea in the Prem, they weren't too far away from it by then. I know they've been on a decline, you know, so 13 years ago, it's a pretty decent job in UK youth development. And yeah, 13 years ago, he's 34 now. That's when he was 21, you know, so this is a guy that has... You know, he has his 10,000 hours on the training ground. No two ways about it. And when he was Minnesota manager, he was very, very well regarded. Minnesota did really well in MLS under him. He averaged 1.6 points a match, which is really good. Can I maybe use... Let's go and have a wee nosy. What was Nancy's points per match? I should have did this before coming on. Sorry, this has just occurred to me, though. Just for a wee bit of context, Wilfred Nancy's points per match at Columbus was 1.8 in 136 matches. So Mason with 50 matches less isn't too far the same. Didn't obviously win a title or anything like that. And at West Brom, he only got 9 matches. I'm not too sure over though. I was reading it earlier, but it just fell out the back of my head, the reasons why he didn't hang about. I think it was quite simply they went from bad to worse, and they just didn't hang about in that regard. So didn't quite work out for him there. His style, though, it's not quite that Jens Berthal Askou kind of thing. It's maybe a wee bit more, I don't want to say negative, but pragmatic, low to mid block. He likes a 5-4-1 or a 5-3-2. So the 5-3-2 or the 5-4-1, if anybody's watched Japan, it's in that kind of mode where the wing backs are actually like attackers. If you watch the Japan team, the wing backs were Nakamura, who got the goal, and then Ritsu Dohan, who for Frankfurt, he's like a frontline player for the most part, PTSD at the mention of MLS. Yeah, I get that. Gavi boy for sure. So the wing backs for this guy are like actual wingers. So it kind of sounds and looks like defensive formations, but when you see the people that are involved in the 5-3-2, the sort of guys he likes to play up front. If you think about Maswinise and who is the other big powerful forward, Theo Bear, like he likes big powerful forwards as well. And this guy is as well. He's a bit of a secret weapon set piece guy as well. So set pieces are like proper weapons with Eric Ramsey. Let's say this is a guy that's got his 10,000 hours on the training ground at a very high level. And for me, that was a big part of Jens Berthal Askou, was training ground efficacy or efficiency, however you're meant to say that, and getting a plan, a style, a game plan for the opponent onto the pitch and maximising individuals. So for me, Eric Ramsey, who's a free agent, who's probably going to be in the mix for one of these jobs in the SPFL, but if Motherwell could get their hands on him, this would be a top appointment. He should be wildly motivated by it as well at 34 years of age to take over a club in this position after the kind of the stall he's had in his career at West Brom, getting a club like Motherwell. And imagine Motherwell don't hired a guy like this, and I'm not saying this to be rude or anything, but didn't get eliminated from the Conference League or whatever, then I would, and then kicked on, gets a semi-final or a final, finishes 4th or whatever in the league, it would be a resounding success and would probably be in the conversation like Jens Berthal Askou was this year for manager of the season type thing. So I think Motherwell have got really interesting prospects at their door, where their next manager will have a bit of a blank canvas as well. We've not actually really looked at the Motherwell squad on the tactics board. I've not got it prepared, but with the expected departures of Elijah Just, Maswinise, maybe Elliot Watt, I don't think there's much smoke around that, but you wouldn't rule it out. The goalkeeper and the left back have had some tenuous links here and there, so there could be as many as like 5 key players leaving Motherwell this year, and then there needs to be a wee bit of a reformat, a wee bit of a rebalance. And this guy for me is the guy to go for. If he's in the interview room, when you see the whites of his eyes, if he really looks like he can deliver what he looks like he should be able to offer, Man United level, one-to-one coaching ability, as well as that kind of big brain youth development stuff, as you see with Chelsea. And then the thing with MLS, right, is like it's not like football really, because I had the way the division is structured, the way teams have to be constructed, and everything else around it. But it is very challenging, and if you can be semi-dominant in the division, it does show something. And Wilfred Nancy is a name and a case that probably doesn't need brought up too much, but I honestly really wouldn't hold that kind of 1 + 1 = 2 kind of situation here, in terms of MLS to SPFL. I just think it's not, especially with the individual character here, like Wilfred Nancy's entire football coaching background is in America. Although he's French, he's never coached in France, not even at youth level. All of his coaching is in Canada and America. So even though he was French, I felt he was like pretty American, This guy is like, and I don't want to make it about American and European and all that kind of stuff, but with this guy's background and pedigree, Chelsea, Man United, Wales assistant manager, I did even mention that as well. Of course, not really too long of a campaign there for 6 months, He's just got a bit more of that actual what football is about here, about him. And I think this would be a great one for Motherwell. So I thought I would have a wee look as well at the World Cup ratings that for the SPFL players that we've had go out and play to this point. Elijah Just is obviously the headline maker with his 2 goals last night. He brought in an 85 out of 100 performance last night, and like we've mentioned already, he's probably doubled his transfer value in the process. New Zealand getting a nice point against Iran. I think they really were going out to win that game with the way their group's set up. It's really open if someone could have won that match, but played a good match. He had 2 shots on target. He won a dribble. And again, Opta, the way they capture statistics isn't perfect half the time, but this is pretty good going. 22 passes, 11 of them in the final third. Got 2 goals. Chris Wood got 2 assists, but he also had an attempted assist, so nice forward play from them. Jules won and lost is Ichi Peachy, so not really much to write home about there. Wee interception on top, was fouled a couple of times. And the thing about what I watched the highlights, I didn't stay up for this match, but it really looked like Elijah Just in the SPFL, just in the World Cup, you know. And that, if anyone was interested in him, is a great hallmark, is a great, litmus test that if you were to take this guy and put him into a higher division than the SPFL, maybe not all the way to the Premier League or La Liga or anything like that, you know, but if you put this guy into the Portuguese league, the French league, something like that, there's a fair chance you're going to get what you've seen at Motherwell show up at 26, 27 years of age. He's in the prime of his career. And that's the thing you expect with prime age players, is that you kind of know what you're getting from it. We had Alistair Johnson very early on in the tournament playing for Canada. He didn't do too good. He came out with a 38 out of 100 against Bosnia in a 1-1 draw. Derek Cornelius also played in this game as well. He got a 45 out of 100, 1-1 draw for the hosts. I felt Canada had a lot of nervous energy in this match, and Cornelius kind of caught the eye once or twice with some errors. AJ did okay at times. Daizen Maeda played for Japan, played okay. His score was rotten. He came out with a 30 out of 100, didn't really do anything of note. Lost possession more than he won it. Didn't actually really create anything, only had 4 passes really in the match, and was one of the first guys substituted off, so not really much to do there for him. Ben Nygren was involved in a 5-1 win for Sweden, but did nothing. No goals and no assists. For the guy that Celtic fans were referring to as the big question mark of the team, how he just managed to keep getting goals and assists, but a 5-1 game here. And apparently he did okay, reading the reports that came out from Sweden. Again, I didn't stay up for this one. It was quite late. Didn't really do much note, but there you go. Tuneki played in that match as well. Came off the bench, did absolutely nothing. And we had Nico Raskin for Belgium come off the bench against Egypt in a game that I heard, again, not one I caught. I think my son was at football training for this one or something, but Belgium were very unimpressive in this one. Raskin came off the bench, got 34 minutes, and for 34 minutes didn't do too bad, I suppose. He won a tackle, won 3 duels, only lost 1, which is good going. 14 passes, 8 missed passes. So again, against the wall against Egypt, you want to be a bit more cutting edge there, don't you? But he did create a big chance. He got an attempted assist. So there you go for him. Lawrence Shanklin started for Celtic. Lawrence Shanklin started for Scotland as well. Sorry, I beg your pardon there. I was just thinking now, I've accidentally did this as like our Celtic Rangers kind of sandwich and didn't even mean it there. And then the little slip of the tongue comes. Now, I did do my Scotland breakdown on the channel yesterday or the day before yesterday, I beg your pardon. Feel free to check it out. Shanklin was easily the worst player for Scotland for me. The system worked well. We got the win. Everything was fine. He just didn't do his job. He just really didn't do his job. Never really held the ball up. 7 passes, only 1 of them in the final third. He won 11 duels. I find that really hard to believe, by the way, how Opta have given him 11 duels won, but he lost 5 and lost possession 12 times. So, 12 possession lost, but he won more duels, so yeah, I think there's an Opta something there. But anyway, you can't argue with the stats. They are what they are. He was fouled twice, which is kind of what you want. Gave away 4 fouls, which is what you don't want. Error leading to shot. I think we all kind of seen that kind of moment in the game, as it were. Played 83 minutes. And hey, the system worked ultimately. Kept Haiti at bay long enough, and it was a joy. But I don't think we're going to see Lawrence Shanklin start for Scotland again in this World Cup. We also had Grant Hanley starting for Scotland. The Hibs defenders made it back from injury towards the back end of the season. And I've been kind of referring to him as the teacher's pet of Steve Clarke in the defence. I expected him to play, did play. He gave away a foul. On top of that, he made 4 effective clearances, 1 a tackle, made 2 blocks. It's kind of everything you need at centre defence. Only won 3 duels, having lost 5. Not great going, but he made an interception on top of that. 46 passes, only 4 were missed, so good accuracy. And as we looked at in the highlights, 6 long passes into the opposition, 6 accurate long balls, a decent range of passing for Big Hanley. 1 ball made it all the way into the box. I think that was the Adams one, wasn't it, for the McGinn goal? Is that the way that sequence panned out? So we've had some of them play already. We've got a few more to maybe go before we're finished with the World Cup yet. But I think that's pretty much everything we've got here. Rangers should offer cash plus McCausland for Just. I'm not sure Motherwell would do that, unless it's a lot of cash. Let me catch up with the comments, see what you guys are saying. For a moment, that's kind of everything I had prepared to go through with you guys. I say there's not really much happening in terms of actual news. So there, AP, loving all the content recently. Thank you very much, mate. Fist bumps and good to see you. The league won't be as poor next season. Will be near impossible to create what Askou done. I think in terms of the difficulty of recreating Askou, I suspect Hearts don't have the European problem that typically Scottish clubs have once they finish third. You know, we've just seen that poison chalice happen to Dundee United, get relegated after finishing third. Am I not right in saying? And that's maybe happened to somebody before, like maybe Hearts or Hibs or something. Maybe again, you guys might know that better. I think Hearts have got a good chance of bucking that trend. Motherwell don't, for me. So I think Motherwell will probably be eliminated from European football, and the kind of like easy berth that they had into the season last year with Jens Berthal Askou, they probably won't have this year because of the transfer movement that they're going to have as well. That will just make things maybe a little bit more stop-starty. But I do think like Hearts, Celtic and Rangers will be in Europe next year to some extent in some sort of group stage is how I imagine it as we sit and talk right now. Let's see how it does all shake out in the fullness of time. And for Motherwell, like your main contenders are going to be Hibs. Maybe Falkirk are still going to be in the mix. Could Kilmarnock really punch up into the top six and give a team like Motherwell, depending on how many of their players they keep, I think that's an important element of it, a real run for their money into fourth place? That's a big ask. Same with, you're even thinking about Aberdeen and St Mirren maybe quietly going about some business as well. So I do agree that the league will be a lot more competitive, but I do think that further lends into, I don't think we quite get Celtic and Rangers being like as bad as they were this year, you know, and that's maybe a part of the factor that made this a title race last year. But I do think, you know, like I remember growing up, the thing with Celtic and Rangers was always you had to beat everyone, but really then outside of that, everyone could beat everyone. And who was going to be third? Like it was really fine margins. Like, and a lot of teams in the league used to have like a good striker. Everyone had a kind of maverick, a key player for the most part, and it would just be kind of who got form at the right time and who would actually have a good season. That would be who would finish in the top six or third and fourth in particular. And I think to some extent this year it will be the same. So does that make it harder for Motherwell? I suppose it does, because it makes it harder for them to get points. But I think it's also going to be harder for everyone else to get points, if that makes sense. Because although you might look at, let's just say Aberdeen, and think Aberdeen should be a lot better next year. I already mentioned Falkirk, Kilmarnock and Hibs. I would expect all of them to be better next year. So when they all face off against each other, never mind against Motherwell, I think they're all going to find it an even tougher time to acquire points, especially early going. Those teams like Aberdeen's and whoever else is that are not got any pre-season obligations or whatever, and maybe have less transfer volatility, do get a better start. The start can be quite important in the league, particularly as you've seen how it went with Hearts last year. If you're going to really do something, the start is vital, I would say. But Motherwell, like I think a lot of their start was like draws and stuff like that. They weren't necessarily winning, but they weren't losing, you know, so it's more than one way to approach it, sort of thing. So I do agree with the comment, but I do think it cuts both ways, you know. So not only will it be harder for Motherwell to gain points, I think it would be harder, despite Aberdeen being better, a bit harder for them to get points. Copy and paste for Falkirk and Hibs and everyone else you want to think about, never mind the Glasgow teams and Hearts. Aberdeen will be stuffy under Robinson. Yeah, I think so too. But this is the most resources that Robinson's ever had. Again, I thought he was a very good Motherwell manager. I thought he was a pretty good St Mirren manager as well. And I don't think there's a huge difference in resources from Aberdeen to maybe St Mirren and Motherwell in the current climate. I think there used to be, when Derek McInnes was Aberdeen manager, you kind of felt it maybe a bit more. They could just get slightly better wage packets for some of these upper level SPFL talents that they used to sign. But I'm not, you know, so that's maybe hard to say. Maybe. Falkirk second season syndrome. Yeah, maybe. How do you see the top six going? I've kind of, I guess, stumbled into that a little bit, Michael. It's very early to say. You know, I was chatting about this with Paul John yesterday, but like Hibs, Motherwell and Celtic are the only teams in the league not to have signed players as far as I think about it right now. And when I look at, you know, I'm not getting too overexcited with anything, but genuinely, like that Laidlaw guy that Falkirk signed is a good player. The strikers that Kilmarnock have signed look like they should be all right. And I know what you're saying there about Aberdeen and Robinson, but they signed Conor Ronan and the other midfielder, Breedle, looks the part. Olasanya has been good in the league and whatever as well. So I do like the Aberdeen business that they've done so far. I'm not sure there's been much else. If St Mirren maybe signed one of these guys from like Irish or Welsh football as well, I forget. But I actually quite, I think a lot of teams are adding goals already in the window, and it's early on, and there's only a segment of the market that is moving right now that has liquidity. A lot of guys are being held up for World Cup stuff, and a lot of these teams might be financed, Motherwell in particular, by World Cup exits. So that might spark them into life later in the window. But I think, like, in terms of top six, I see Ian dropping a prediction in here. I'll pop it up on screen. Feel free to leave this in the comment section. I think the top three is kind of undeniable at this point. Hibs, Aberdeen, St Johnstone for Ian. St Johnstone, by the way, so that's the thing. I've not quite got up to speed with St Johnstone. Do you still have that Finnish guy as a manager? Valakari or whatever? Yeah. I liked him. When he went down. He is still the manager, isn't he? Yeah. I liked him. I wouldn't rule St Johnstone out being a wild card. I know you're probably a bit tongue-in-cheek here, Ian, but I wouldn't be too surprised. I think I've looked at too many Aberdeen teams, especially last season. Jesper Karlsson, Adil Ayushishe, and then they signed a guy from AC Milan, and I think there's maybe another one in the mix somewhere where I was like, wow, Antti Palaversa. There was a few. So I've been fooled by Aberdeen. Stuart Armstrong, I've been fooled by Aberdeen too many times where they actually make a good-looking first 11 and it doesn't really translate, doesn't really turn up. So I feel hesitant to put Aberdeen. It looks like you've got them in fifth there. I think Aberdeen, if I was to put them in the top six, it would be sixth because I'm not sure. Like their forward line is like Nisbet, Olasanya, and like one other guy. And then there's two guys in the frame, Milanovic and Bilalovic. And you guys are telling me, Aberdeen fans are telling me that they'll be leaving. So I think Aberdeen, I'm not sure where they get the goals from, but it looks like their midfield and their defence has got like numbers, and if they added quality, maybe that's yet to be seen. I think Aberdeen, out of everyone I look at, I'm not too sure. I think Kilmarnock could outscore Aberdeen, sincerely. And, obviously this is a brand new channel, so some of my kind of running jokes or whatever aren't quite established yet. But when Barry Ferguson was Rangers manager, I just thoroughly would not accept that he was actually the Rangers manager. So I would refer to Neil McCann as the Rangers manager throughout that time. So former Rangers manager Neil McCann, I think, did quite a good job at Kilmarnock. Now, he won't have Finlay Curtis at his disposal, who I think was a big X-factor player for him. But the players that they have added in are like going to add in goals, are going to add into the front line at Kilmarnock. And I think Neil McCann, again, I said that about Naismith earlier, like I like listening to Neil McCann talk about football. I think when he's on as a pundit and stuff like that, or even in the breakdown of matches, I think he speaks about the game well, and I can imagine being a good coach on the training ground. So I wouldn't rule out Kilmarnock being like sixth or fifth. I think Hibs is a team you really need to look at for fourth and fifth. And then there's a big conversation. Falkirk and Motherwell are the ones that were there last year. I find it hard to believe that John McGlynn doesn't do as well next year, personally, because although they've lost Calvin Miller, they probably will lose Barney Stewart. The Laidlaw addition, I think, is good. And I think, John McGlynn and Falkirk have shown a really repeatable process with moving guys on and bringing guys through. So I would fancy Falkirk to be top six. I don't think they'll have much of a hangover, to be quite frank. They got to a Scottish Cup semi-final this year. They played more matches than Hearts this year, Falkirk. So I don't feel that way about them. Motherwell is a big unknown. Like they could be fourth. They could just be nailed on fourth. They could have a great season. They could get a great manager, make some signings that replace guys, and really peacefully kind of evolve on, without too much drama or uproar. But I think with Motherwell, there's a lot to be seen still. So when it comes to top six, in no particular order, Glasgow Clubs and Hearts. I think Hibs have to be in there, although they've not really done much business. And I think they signed somebody today, actually, didn't they? Kerr, is that the guy that's going to Hibs? Jason Kerr, and maybe somebody else, a youth guy, maybe in a contract extension. I think Hibs should be a shout. Yeah, so I'm going Glasgow clubs. I'm going Glasgow Edinburgh clubs. Falkirk. I might even go for the same top six. I might say it's the same. Oh, by the way, it is going to be tough, by the way. It is, isn't it? It's going to be really tough. Yeah, Aberdeen do turn over managers sometimes quite often. So could see that happen. Now, guys, if you've been watching live and loud, the likes go a long way supporting the channel. So thanks to everyone that is tuned in with us this morning. if you're watching this after we've been live, likes and comments go a long, long way as well as supporting the channel. We've had some conversation pieces here with the chat that maybe you'd like to get involved in terms of who Motherwell should go for as manager. Maybe a World Cup player that's really stood out to you. Maybe not necessarily an SPFL player, but maybe somebody that's like, oh, could he sign for my team? Kind of thing. So we'll probably have a wee bit as we get rumours coming in, we'll maybe do some kind of scouting videos in that way. So we'll kind of see how it comes, as it were. Or maybe you'll have a wee chat about the top 6. What do you think early doors? Have some of these other teams that have done their business early, have they actually really jumped up the pecking order here all of a sudden with the quality of squad that they look to have at their disposal for the season ahead? Or do you think, kind of similar to I've ended up there, it's going to be same story again when it's all said and done, but without it probably being as predictable as that? It might be a real kind of photo finish for who gets into the top 6 at the end, because I do expect it to be, like the comment said earlier, a lot more competitive next year. But that sword does cut, or that edge does cut both ways. So we're harder for everyone, I think. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Didn't have too much to go through, but we'll be back tomorrow for a wee bit more Scottish Football Daily. Thanks again to everyone that tuned in, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.